Good evening and welcome to the Laughing Monkey Music Show. Today we have Wayne Kramer on. Wayne is what he's done to music with his band MC5. If you're not aware of it, is just it's like the footsteps of rock. You really have set. You're it's like a rock, metal, punk. Anybody who doesn't know Wayne, pause the show or whatever, bookmark it, go on internet and do some research, play some videos, get caught up, so you can appreciate who I'm talking to and what his influence of music has been and what it continues to be. And it's not just on music. Give me a minute to say here that what you're doing for music in prisons is fantastic. What you've done politically is just as explosive as what you've done explosive for music. I mean, you're really it's everywhere with you. So I'm going to try to focus in a little bit on the conversation. You are full service, and there's not a lot of those places anymore nowadays. You can do that. So with COVID, obviously everyone's been locked down and stuff, and you're preparing to get out. Is the machine getting ready to go out? If you start playing out a little bit now, because I know you were doing some stuff before.
I'm writing a new record.
Ooh.
So we're about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the process. Got to write maybe 5 more numbers and secure a home for it and start plotting the touring schedule for 22.
Now, when you say secure, you're going to try to have it like a distributor. You're not going to probably have a big label take control of it, and you're going to you're just looking for somebody.
Oh yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
I mean, you've already done that before. You were the first one to kind of give the middle finger to the industry to begin with.
Well, or the industry gave me the middle finger. I'm not sure. There was a kind of a mutual breakdown in the understanding of what we were trying to accomplish together. And ultimately, their goals and practices didn't align with mine. And I'm not painting them out necessarily as evil,
No.
because I was responsible for a great deal of the acrimony. I was young and I was irresponsible, and I mean,
But most successful art and commerce are not usually handheld together. The best
yeah,
art is
it's
not always
always,
the most commercially viable.
yeah, it's almost always a acrimonious relationship.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. This is like, you can take a lot of bands like, oh, in the 80s and 90s, and a different band that talk to you like, well, the band did this and this and this. But the truth is, you're not a dig towards either side. But when you sign up with a company that makes money, whether it's a soda place or whatever, but you want to keep artistic, once you sign on to a business that only wants to make money and then acts like a bank with their interest at heart, with your creative license being your goal and your heart, it's like being in a relationship with somebody who just wants to date you for money, and then you're all about love.
Well, yeah,
That's going to be a problem.
it's complex, and uh, often we run into the misplaced priorities of capitalism, which are profit at any cost.
Yes.
And profit itself is not inherently destructive or negative, as long as it doesn't come before human beings, before people. I mean, that's been the breakdown of the capitalist system from inception. That big business is only interested in the bottom line, and human beings are don't fit into that so well.
Yeah. It don't. I mean, you're right. Capitalism provides challenging, and people want to be better, so it does bring better product, better this, better that.
Yeah.
But there's nowhere to put the brakes on for people, and I don't think there's a way that machine's. It's a machine. I don't think the machine's going to care about the people, and
Well,
it's never going to.
look at the auto industry. Detroit created the best cars in the world from the Model T in 1925 up through the 60s. And but when we hit the 70s, the larger world, the Arabs decided, OPEC decided that rather than charge the West $20 a barrel for oil, they're going to charge $60 a barrel for oil. I mean, this is the reality of the global marketplace.
Yep.
And Detroit was caught, holding all these gas guzzling cars. And the Japanese and the Koreans and the Germans had better ideas, cars that would get 30, 40 miles to the gallon. And no one understood the damage to the environment that the internal combustion engine was creating. Everyone thought that air was infinite, and we know today it's not infinite.
I don't know. I think a lot of us, even as a small child, I mean, even if you look at the Industrial Revolution, you watch that black smoke going off into the air you breathe, and you're like, I don't think that's going to be good. You know what I mean? Or smoking. I didn't know it was bad for me, really, because it's not vitamin C. Like you need the poison label on it. Like when you were first smoking it, it has like everything in it from the street gathered together with some nicotine, and you don't know that's bad for you. I think the effect really hits us hard now.
In the 1960s, when I first started touring and flying around the country, there were a number of cities that I noticed. You're cruising along at 30,000 feet, and then you're coming up on the cities were Newark, New Jersey, um, uh, Chicago, Gary, Indiana, around there,
Yeah.
Detroit, Pittsburgh, cities with heavy industry, that as the plane would start to come down to land, you could see a barrier of brown pollution. It was, there was no
Right.
mistaking what it
That's
was.
what I'm saying. I mean, it's not like, but people like you already speaking out the '60s stuff, but a lot of people were like, no, it's not bad. I remember being a small child and being like, everyone in my house smoked except for me, and I'm not a smoker. They had like white walls, it was like in the '70s, and every couple of years they had to take the paintings down and repaint the house,
Yeah,
and you had these like white frames around the rooms. I'm like, this isn't good, and I'm like 5, 6, 7 years old. I knew it wasn't good then.
yeah.
There's a common sense factor, and I think what's really great is you've been outspoken, and of course rock and roll's always been dangerous or whatever by whatever. I mean, but dangerous for them is more like, I mean, you did tinker in the drugs a little bit there, but right. But more so, some of the important things you've gotten from everything you've done, you've learned and exploded with helping other people. And you did politics early in the beginning with your music, and which is fantastic. And that's more dangerous than anything you can do with rock and roll. You know, speaking out against the government. It's like in the '60s. I mean, you did have your Black Sabbath, the other bands were like being dangerous for rock and roll, but no one's like kind of saying, hey, giving a middle finger to the government, saying, listen, people, get together. That's a revolution. Not a lot of bands are doing that, especially at your level, what you're doing. You know,
Well,
and thank you, and thank you. Let me just tell you, thank you.
you're welcome. The MC5 was part of a generation, my generation we were young at the time, um, who were in agreement that the direction the country was going in was wrong. And, that we believed in the um, aspirational goals in the Constitution,
Mm-hmm.
justice for all, this an egalitarian meritocracy. Um, we believed in that. We believed that if the government was going in the wrong direction, we had the right and the responsibility to redress their policies.
Which
And we
is huge,
did.
because how old were you exactly when you first started? Like, I know you guys in the '60s was really your like teens. So like,
Yeah, I was
look at
18.
teens now. How many teens now? I mean, actually, maybe more the '80s. Teens in the '80s weren't thinking like that. Maybe now, hopefully, after this last political people we had for president, hopefully people are like, oh, we got to pay attention more and stop shopping at Walmart. We got to really kind of focus in on what's going on, because
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
it's
because
it's very
everybody
forward
made
thinking though.
that mistake.
You know what I mean? It's forward thinking at that point to be. It's even bigger to be a teenager in the '60s to be saying, hey, this isn't right. You know what I mean? That's a big thing for a teen to be thinking. And you guys for some
Well,
killer music too. I'm not taking away from the killer music at the moment.
well, you have to acknowledge, or it can be helpful to acknowledge the influence of the Vietnam War and mandatory conscription, the
Hmm.
draft.
Oh
That
yes, of course.
young men were being forced to join the military and go fight, kill Vietnamese, and perhaps be killed yourself. Almost 60,000 young American boys died in that conflict. Over 1 million Vietnamese died. Um, and we, as a generation, we couldn't justify it. You know, the hypocrisy was unbearable for us. Um, and we were in agreement that, you know, hundreds of thousands of Americans protested against the war, marched in the streets back when marching in the streets really
It's
meant
safe,
something.
right?
And I agree with you. You know, since then, that agreement has dissipated. And up until the end of the Trump era, I don't think there's been an agreement. You're right. People were more interested in their iPhone or their iPad and Facebook than they were about the state of their nation.
I think that was I would like to hope as a 50-year-old male myself that I came in the end. I was old enough to grow up and see how bad Vietnam War was as a older to see it in retrospect as a young child. But then I growing up into the 80s of Reaganomics, where everything was a bubble of bliss, where everybody was just kind of letting the government do what it wants and not really paying attention, in my opinion. Um,
I
and
agree.
and and then at that point, then things kind of, then you get the 90s, and then you got, everyone kind of started enjoying everything. It's shoegaze, everyone's kind of gaze gets the shoes for rock, and then not paying attention, and all of a sudden we end up where we were a few years ago, and to the point where finally, women and children and minorities are being recognized the way they should have been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of the minute there's a breath of a human being's breath, everybody should have been recognized the same, which you've been fighting for years for. Um, is only starting now to get acknowledged. And I think your message, and this is why it's so important to talk to us on top of the music in a minute, is something you've been fighting for your whole life. And it's just as relevant today, probably more so.
These things, you know, these are fundamental principles. Um, you know, self determination, self efficacy, um, um, the unity to, you know, like in the union, the best of the union movement and
Mm-hmm.
collective bargaining, that the interest of the collective matters. And you know, one person's well-being is my well-being. You know, that we're all in this together,
Right.
which you know, capitalism has proved its efficacy in separating people and reducing them to market shares and you know, sales figures when they're actually living, breathing human beings that matter.
I think
And
the problem is,
these
yeah,
principles
yeah.
will they are they have substance to them. You know, you and I are temporary,
Yeah.
ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But these principles have substance. They endure over time. You know, over eternity. What is a true principle today will be a true principle in another 100,000 years or in another 100 million years.
Yeah. And those, as much as those are things that are facts, intuitively, I don't think everybody subscribes to it or feels that they feel it's just for them. Whereas just as easily, if they get a piece of the pie all of a sudden, just like you say back in the days of early England or whatever, be like, yo, I'm going to rebel against the king. I'm going to give you a piece of land and let you tax a few people in the area, and all of a sudden they're behind the king again. It seems like a very basic principle, but I see it very clearly still everywhere.
Hmm.
Everyone has a problem with something until they get a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Who's saying I don't really want a piece of the pie? I want everyone to have a piece of the pie.
Hmm.
And I think that's always going to be the struggle. And maybe the advantage now is more people don't have a piece of the pie, are acknowledging at the same time,
Yeah.
which gives a little bit more power.
Yeah.
Will things dissuade or change things I hope not. I hope it keeps pushing through. I mean, is your songwriting still going to be as effective now? I would think so, but
Well, you can't separate these
some
things.
people can. Some people can, and you know, you've lived a
I
full life,
can't
so you may have other
separate.
things you want to write about. Okay, that's a
Yeah.
fair question. You understand what I'm saying because you're an artist also, so you also like to create. So it doesn't mean not every band writes the same album. They're like, I wish AC/DC did the same album, or I wish so and so. That you're an artist, and you should be able to write whatever you want.
Yeah. Agreed.
But that being also, you also I don't need a political artist. I don't know. I hate that. That's a horrible title because it makes you think you're a politician. Yeah, political commentary musician, maybe. I don't know.
Once you once you have an interest in how things got to be the way they are,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that doesn't go away. You don't stop caring about that. You
No,
know.
no, I get that. Well, I think the what comes across as you is, and it's not like somebody's like, oh, they're a political banner for this president or for this president. You're even the colors of your band, or MC5 and I MC50. Is that because of just the time frame for the album? Is that what you call that, or just because of different numbers? Or you kind of call yourself a different name now, a little sort of? You know what I'm saying? You're going by MC50. Is that more illegal or?
No, it's not so legal. It was, I view my role as the curator of the MC5's legacy.
Mhm.
Uh, three of the band members are gone now.
Yeah.
Just me and Machine Gun Thompson are still alive, and Machine Gun is, um, semi-retired, and I'm still an active player. So, it's on me to carry on the message of the MC5, but to adapt it to today in a way that reflects some of the concerns and the humor and the
As far as with your music, though, is it's literally so relevant to listen to your first three albums and from back like literally listen to them. And even how music's changed and how like it was considered alternative and garage rock and like it's all out there. It's like a big buffet now. There really isn't a certain type of label, and there really is no certain radio station. There's a few they're doing pop, whatever, but for the most part, it's kind of out there now. So there really isn't a lot of changing. You just write about your policy. It's kind of everything just fits so well still. You know, even the sound sounds as fresh today.
well,
You
I
know,
wasn't sure. Um, and so the first few dates that we did, we played some festivals in Europe. And I wasn't convinced that the modern rock festival, the European festival audience, would get the MC5's music. About
wow.
halfway through the second song, all my apprehensions disappeared because they understood exactly what that this was hard rock, that this
Mm-hmm.
guitar driven, uh, passionate, exciting music being performed live in front of them on a level that they may not have uh, heard before, but certainly identified with. I mean, I notice, we're playing a festival in Scandinavia, and we start off, there's two or three stages on these things, so the
Yeah,
fans have a choice of going to see this band or this band or that band.
which is
And
kind of hard. It's like picking a favorite child.
well, so I'm playing to maybe 4,000 kids who are curious to come over. My guess is half of them have never heard of the MC5 or Wayne Kramer. They have no idea what this band is. The other half they're clearly music fans because they're at a festival, and they
Right.
may have heard of Kick Out the Jams or so, about halfway through the set, I notice, people walk around these festivals. They stay and watch one band for a while and they go see another band.
Okay.
Our crowd kept growing, kept getting larger and larger. So at the end, maybe we had 8 or 10,000. The people had come, they stayed because they liked what they were hearing. And then more people joined them. And after the first two concerts, I knew that this was going to go pretty well.
You're back. You're like, Wayne is back. What's great is, first off, Europe has always been very forgiving and very open for American music on many levels. Even anything with a guitar and non-altered vocals. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
could be any kind of singer, and you could be, I don't know what you consider, I'm not talking Mexican talent, kind of pitchy dog type of vocal shows. We're talking like a rock and roll voice, a rock and roll singer, and a guitar. And Europe's been pretty opening, for that market. But that same thing, I think your music transcends. They cannot understand English, and your music just rocks. They can understand and get the image of it and the music, and it rocks. And then if they can understand English and you can see it, because even the colors and the design, the art is still very reflective of not such of a political band, but a band in the late 60s, early 70s of America, of the Woodstock style. People get the image of wanting freedom and equality. And that's what the image shows, and maybe that's maybe towards my how I absorb it of the people. You know what I mean? That you're still a band fighting for the people, a band of the people. I mean, and then you got that Detroit stamp on you, which is, don't get any more for the people than being a band from Detroit. You know what I mean?
Blue collar.
Right. Who's in your band at this point? I know before you had quite a hit list. It's the same guys, the Soundgarden, the big.
Some of those guys may carry on with me. They're all in other bands.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah.
Those bands are everybody's going back to work now that it appears the pandemic is moving behind us.
I would hold your breath.
Yeah. So we'll have to. I'll have to see as we move forward. Who can tour with me. Who's going to be committed to other projects. Billy Gould is a founding member of Faith No More. Yep. They're going out. Kim Thayil and Soundgarden, they have some ideas that they're working on to be able to tour again. Brendan Canty is one of the hardest working drummers in the game.
He's everywhere.
But he's also committed to carry on with me, so hopefully he'll
that. That's good.
Marcus Durant just had a baby, so I don't know how that might affect his ability to leave town for weeks or months at a time. I refused to tour the first 5 years when my son arrived because I didn't want to miss it.
No.
You don't get that time back. And a infant and a toddler and an adolescent, they need both parents. I mean, you've seen it over and over and over again here in Hollywood, how absentee marriages and absentee families don't work. Families are hands-on, and you've got to be
there. There's more studies that are coming out too, saying that a two-parent family weighs more, and it shows there's numbers again finally to it to counteract what this whole other world value has gone on. I mean, sometimes things happen, of course, so you don't want it. And if that's the case, you still try keeping both parents involved and as a unit, and that makes a difference. It doesn't have to be together, but you're right, being on the road and being gone. I mean, I would say the best years of tour when they're a teenager. Gone. I would be gone 8 years. I have 3 kids, man. I'm telling you, just go tour Europe for 8 years. Just telling you right now, send your wife some necklaces or something. Just be gone, man. That's all I'm saying. And then when he graduates, buy him a nice car. Yeah, buy him a nice car when he graduates, and you'll be the coolest dad again. It's perfect. Don't worry.
Yeah, come
on.
on.
I'm saying.
That's the way, Brendan has 4 boys who are all grown now in college and pursuing their careers. And, as we tour around the United States, we're in Manhattan. One of his sons is at school there. So he comes over and hangs out. It's brilliant. We play Austin, Texas. One of his sons lives down there. So we get to see that one.
Jeez.
So, yeah, that's a good way to do it.
You toured all your kids. A lot of kids, man. It's like the Duggars be everywhere. He's got to keep touring. No wonder he's working so much. Got a lot of school to pay for. I said,
bills to pay.
That's right. That's awesome. But that is important. Being a family working touring band is, and I think that's why a lot of bands have gone that way nowadays too, generationally. I almost think, yeah, earlier bands up and probably to the bands up into the early '90s have all kind of taken that. They're back out to tour. They survived. Music industry's been kind of crazy for many years. It's never been a great place for musicians, working musicians like yourself. But I also think it's been a good time now for a lot of musicians, whether you're considered rock or classic rock or punk or whatever. There's like an age where I'd say most of the artists say they're, 50, closer to my age group, and then up to your group. And that span of like 20 years, I think you're like 70, right? And also, how do you look so great at 70? Because you look better now than I did at 35, man. Now I'm taking vitamins or something, man. I couldn't jump around like you. But the point is, like, you guys have a balance now of working with family and touring and survived all that monstrous, horrible stuff that was going on in the industry,
Well, some of us survived, many did not.
Right. But
High
the point is that I'm
attrition
talking.
rate.
Well, you made it through. You had your own things, which actually can lead to this. Can you want to take a second and promote your jail program, which is fantastic? I think people should know about.
Um, when it's no secret I served a prison term in the 1970s.
Right.
While I was in the penitentiary, a new music form emerged, punk rock. And there was a British band that was very conscious, very progressive, called The Clash. They were MC5 fans, and they wrote a song talking about my misadventures. And
That makes it all worth it right there. Makes it all worth it right there, dude. A Clash song about yourself. You couldn't play it any better. That's it.
me and a couple other guitar players. And it was called Jail Guitar Doors. And at the time, I thought, what a great show of solidarity
Mhm.
from some brothers across the sea that I didn't know, um, and then didn't think much of it. And then after I was released, I watched for the next 30 years as prison populations in this country exploded exponentially. They went up 7 times. When I did my sentence in the 70s, there were 350,000 people in prison in our country, state and federal. Today, there's 2.2 million of our fellows. We have 5% of the world's population and 25% of the world's prisoners. We lock up more people in America than any country in the history of the world. Today, right now, today, we have more people in prison than any country, China, Russia, Myanmar, you name it, the Middle East, it doesn't matter. We lock up more of our own citizens. And finally, the activist in me got angry, and it was a slow burn. And finally, I had to do something. The way I treat my own depression, my own anxiety about the world I live in is by taking direct ethical action. Get up off the couch and
Yeah.
go do something. Don't sit in front of the computer and click something and think I did something. Go do something.
Subscribe to something. Yeah. I support this. Click if you want to,
Yeah.
a petition. I'm going to click on a petition. Ooh, you saved the world.
So what could I do? I'm a musician. Um, Maybe I could do concerts in prisons. I always enjoyed it when people from the street came in and did concerts in our prison that I served my sentence in. So I put together a crew of guys to go into the infamous Sing Sing maximum security facility in New York. And one of the guys I took in with me was the great Billy Bragg.
Yep.
Billy had Jail Guitar Doors written on his guitar. And I said, "What's up with that, Bill?" And he said, "Oh, it's an old Clash B-side. Have you ever heard it?" And I said, "Heard it? Bill, the song is about me." Bloody fucking hell. And we talked about an independent initiative that he had launched in the United Kingdom to provide guitars as tools for prisoner rehabilitation. And the more we talked about it during the day of the concert and on the bus ride back to the hotel, um, I realized this was a perfect fit for me. And so
Hmm.
on that bus ride, my wife Margaret Kramer, Billy Bragg, and I formed Yale Guitar Doors USA, the
Bravo.
sister organization. So that was 11 or 12 years ago, 10 or 11, I'm not sure, 2008 or 2009. Today, our instruments are in over 160 American prisons. We run songwriting workshop programming in prisons and jails across the country, and particularly here in California where I live.
Hmm.
We have an extensive workshop program in the California prison system. And in the last 7 years, we've focused on working with young people through the juvenile halls and juvenile camps. They call them camps, they're really prisons for children. And we're trying to work upstream. We're trying to disrupt the cradle to prison pipeline. So that's what we do. We have musicians around the country and around the world with Billy's work in the United Kingdom, and what we do is we help people learn a way to express painful, often complex emotions and memories in a positive way, in a non confrontational way,
Hmm.
through the creative process of creating music, of writing songs. Um, it teaches people a lot of useful tools for when they come home, because 95% of the people in our prisons are coming home someday, and they're going to live next to you and me. They're going to stand in the line at the supermarket with us. They're going to sit
Hmm.
next to us at the movies. Their kids are going to go to the same schools our kids go to. They are us. You know,
And
people have,
a lot of, I'm sorry, and a lot of them, you're right. And a lot of them are, they have either mental issues where they were not unable to unearth these emotions to deal with them, focus it. A lot of it is we not true trainable, but like a trained itself, you could put on a different track. You could kind
yeah,
of prevent. And this is a great program, especially creativity. There's no levels, there's no right or wrong with the guitar or with songwriting. And that's why there's punk and there's classical, and there's nothing. And nothing feels better than creating something and going, you know what a sense of pride that gives you. What an outlet to something else emotionally, because music is emotion. So in a way, it's therapeutic without even using like psychology or like making somebody other emotions. They might not have the words for it, but they could play a song on a guitar and still get to them. I think it's that's why I think it's a fantastic program you do there. Um,
the architecture of prison itself is designed to inculcate in a prisoner that he has no value in the world, that he's a problem, he's a crime, he's a bed space, he's a prison number. And being creative is the best possible argument against that meaninglessness,
mhm.
to advocate for one's humanity. If you can put someone in touch with their own humanity, that will allow them to see the humanity in their fellow. So we have guys in our program, we have rules for the program. And in the workshops, we can talk about anybody and anything, but we must treat each other with dignity and respect. And we have guys that might be from different neighborhoods, different class, different race, different gangs, and we put them all together and tell them these are the guys you're going to write with today. And I've had guys tell me, Wayne, that dude, man, Jim, and I never liked that guy. I didn't like him, man. But, we worked on that song together and he's all right. He's okay.
There you go.
Because what we discover, say we're writing that day on children, we're going to write songs about our kids, that the Hispanic gangster from East Los and the black gang member from Compton both want exactly the same thing for their children. You know, the white Peckerwood biker, he wants the same thing for his kids. They find out they have way more in common than they have in different. That's where the healing, the growth, the rehabilitation happens.
But you're actually setting up a stage that allows them to come to a conclusion. Where sometimes when you're forced to learn stuff, who wants to be forced to do anything, especially after being in prison? Everything's forced at them. You're saying, here, this is the rules to the situation to enjoy. They come to these conclusions, which will carry over further than anything that somebody tells you what to do.
We have empirical studies that prisoners that participate in arts and corrections programming
I love that
have
name.
a 60% lower recidivism rate.
There you go. So you have gained in clearly you're successful in music in your as a career, which is everybody's dream as a musician. But not being Guns N' Roses or Metallica huge, the wealth that you've done to the human race, you could lay your head down at night on the pillow and be like that. You know what I'm saying? You don't have the platinum albums, you have the respect of your peers, but beyond that, the lives you're saving, the families you're helping put back together again, what this program does is so much bigger. That's wealth. You know what I'm saying? It's beautiful. You know,
If our viewers want to help,
I
they
was
can
going to ask you.
they can go to jailguitardoors.org. There's a donate button. Funding is always a challenge. If you're a musician and you want to teach in the prisons, send me an email at wayne@jailguitardoors, and we'll find a way to put your ass to work.
Excellent. I will put your show, all your links, all my shows underneath YouTube for everything you do. Will go underneath there so people can check out your music, check out your programs. They can do everything. Be, right there
One,
with you.
one final note. We've just completed construction on a youth center here in Los Angeles at 3rd and Fairfax in neutral gang territory, which is important because the gangs are capable of lethal violence.
Yeah.
And if a kid wants to come to our program and he's got to take the bus and he's got to make a connection in the wrong neighborhood, it's a serious problem. So our center is in a neutral area, and it has a complete recording studio. It has a computer lab. It has classroom space, performance space, gallery space,
Wow.
and we're very excited about it. It's called the CAPO Center, CAPO, Community Arts Programming and Outreach,
Oh,
and
well
it's
played.
for all young people. Uh, 14 to 22. You don't have to be criminal justice system involved. You can just be a regular neighborhood kid. And it's after school programs and weekend programs. Because we discovered if we don't have something to offer kids when they leave the juvenile
Hmm.
hall or the camp, then they just go back to the neighborhood and the family that got them in trouble in the
Correct.
first place.
Or you're preventing them from even going there to begin with by offering it, by not being in a program.
Yeah,
You're preventing is usually the best way to break the cycle.
yeah.
Wrap up the show, but I want to talk about one other great thing is your iconic guitar, man. And I know it's actually out for a while where people could buy a user end version of it.
Hmm.
We talk about your guitar a little bit, maybe some specs, and just kind of go down dirty on it. I love it. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Sorry, the ubiquitous phone interruption.
No,
Okay, I shut it
it's
off.
you should have had a cat come by and lick your face or a dog. That's usually the other direction, right?
The guitar was I've been a Fender supporter most of my career,
Hmm.
and 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, we started talking about producing a Wayne Kramer Stratocaster with the Stars and Stripes motif and with my modifications. And it took 16 years
So
to
that
get
was
it
the long.
done. You
Wow,
know,
that's a long time in the guitar
well,
world.
Fender's, is a capitalist corporation. And for a long time, the upper management were bean counters. And so my project got put on the back burner and the back burner, and then in the refrigerator, then in the freezer, um, because the executives would only build guitars played by then current guitar heroes.
Right.
Um, Fortunately, all the guys that work at Fender are musicians, and they kept the project alive, and they knew the significance of the guitar.
Which
And
is it is. It's a famous. It's I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. It's the most famous unknown guitar.
so finally, when the Fender management, when the worker side ascended to management,
Hmm.
then they could make the guitars they want. And they made my guitar, they made a Joe Strummer Telly, and guitars were a big hit. And, we worked very hard on it to get it. I wanted a guitar that, um, you know, had good intonation, that stayed in tune. That's why it has a hard tail. There's no vibrato on the guitar.
Yeah.
I put that humbucker in the middle position to give me a meatier, slightly louder sound for solo playing, but still keep that great neck pickup tone of the Stratocaster.
So you
And then,
do have your own tone. You do have your own. It's. I would say it is this. It is this. It's a biting tone. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
That is the Kramer sound. It bites.
that's the highest praise you can offer a musician, that he has his own sound. I
It's the truth. I hear it scream through your music.
So they released it. They sold them all out. They wanted to only do a limited run. They like the idea of the collector's item. We've tried for years to get them to do another run of the
Yeah.
guitar, but they won't. Um, and the guitar was for me, it was just the greatest for a kid that sat there looking at Fender catalogs, going, "Oh man, if I could have one of those, oh
Yeah.
man, oh man, I would love one of." But when I was a kid, they cost $300. It might have been 300,000 for, I couldn't, my family couldn't afford that.
Yep.
My electric guitar was a silver tone that we got at Sears on a payment plan for $100.
And now if
three
you get that
hundred
silver tone,
dollars for a Stratocaster was out of the question.
that's right. Even
So
nowadays, it's still challenging. I buy a lot of my guitars. I love pawn shop guitars because it can be the weirdest brand. And my favorite brand is actually you can see the red one there. It's an Aria Pro 2. I don't know. I couldn't even figure out where it's from. It's like 82, 83. Like a Japanese hardwood Stratish style sound. That's what I wanted. Because who can afford? I can't afford $3,000 guitar. You know.
right.
You know. It's going to be the hard days that I come across one of your guitars that's out somewhere and someone's going to have sales trying to buy it now. Would be the hard call. That's why I'm like, you got to make some more, man, affordable for the rest of us because that sound of that guitar is so great. It's an iconic sound, and it's also a good sound you can play with other music too. It's not like you get a sound and sound like the Slash guitar. Like your guitar sounds good with it because it has a warm feeling. I mean, it's biting, but it's also got this nice warm feeling. Back then, when analog was king. I'm a analog record guy myself, so that resonates with me. That sound.
That
And
I mean, that was the idea behind the putting the humbucker on there, to give me more flexibility, because with the five-way switch you can combine the neck pickup and the humbucker, or the humbucker by itself, or
yep,
the bridge pickup and the humbucker, or just the bridge pickup. So,
I,
you know,
I love that. I love that people do that. I'm surprised that's not more of a standard thing that came out with guitars. We had so many options. Maybe once again, commercially, everybody wants their own little thing. To be a guitar player and be able to flip between sounds, It's like a painter with a different palette instead of having three colors or watercolors.
And yeah, three
You have a
primary
toolbox in front.
colors. There
Right.
are
I'm
only
saying you have
three
three. I know.
primary colors.
But if you mix them
Bridge,
all together,
middle,
you get brown, 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 and brown. And only one person did the brown sound, right?
right,
It was Eddie Van Halen. So besides that, everyone else needs their own color scheme.
right. Tom Morello told me when he first started Rage Against the Machine, he had gone through all the permutation, this guitar, that amp, this
Mm-hmm.
head, that speaker, and he finally decided he's going to use a 50-watt Marshall and a 412 cab, and anything that he does, he's going to do it with that rig and that rig only.
Only
He's done pretty well with that sound.
he has, and next time you see him when he's not looking, cut his strings at the end of his guitar because the OCD part of me, those crazy strings, I'm like, someone's gonna get scratched, you're gonna get caught in the eye, something. Trim that stuff, man. I love your sound, but I can't focus. And I know I'm not alone on that.
Tom has collaborated on a couple of songs for the new album with me.
That's awesome. Oh my god,
Yeah,
that's gonna be so good.
They're sounding terrific. We're very excited about it.
He's also very creative. I love the fact that he came and did Rage, and he did the I can't think it was the project he is now, and then of course he did with Chris, and then he works with you, and then like Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's very very flexible, and once again, it's very creative, and that's what I think the best thing about an artist. You're like, how come Tom Morello play with Bruce Springsteen? Because he's an artist. Why would you not want to play with something different and challenge yourself? Even if it's something you don't know, why not do something different? You know what I mean? Especially people like me that go to your same job every day. Wouldn't you want to do something different? Go to a different job one day or something?
And believe me, that was a challenge playing with Springsteen because his catalog is so huge, and he'll call songs in the middle of the set that they hadn't talked about before. So Tom said it stretched him out, to have to be ready for that.
Didn't he have like 80 songs or like 50 or 80 songs to learn?
I
mean, you read bands
52 he had to learn.
We're going to call you in last minute. Just like, you need to learn like 20 songs for a band overnight. Here's the CDs. You're flying in and learning them. That's insane to me. But then Springsteen's like, I have like 80 songs. I need you to learn them. And we're going to probably do a show that goes for like 4 hours. So really, I might also do cover songs that aren't even part of the 80 songs.
Yeah.
And I need to improvise for probably like 20 minutes on a song. You got this? Tours in a month. Yeah. So
of course, he did have the security blanket of there being 4 other guitar players on the band. So if he didn't know the change, he could the great musician code: when in doubt, leave it out.
There you go. It's hard though because he was I was thinking, looking at him, why is he there? He doesn't really fit in. He's not part of the Bruce Springsteen. You know what I mean? So he's definitely was on the spot. He showed his mettle. You know what I'm saying? You're not just metal. I mean metal. As
who he was. He's a terrific player, and I mean he's a metal as in iron metal.
Of course, I get that too.
Guy and a funk guy, but in another life he could have been the guitar player in the Ohio Players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean he's a soulful player.
That's really excellent. So I'm really excited to hear you guys playing together too. I'm wondering what kind of creation you guys are having. What do you think the date's going to be? You think next year it'll be out?
Yeah.
Cool.
Maybe Christmas. I don't know. It depends, on the marketing campaign.
I'm not holding you to a date. I'm not that guy. This is a show. Just talk about music and relevancy. I'm not looking for that kind of stuff. Just kind of excited.
Next year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Early next year. That's awesome. I'm so looking forward to that. Who's singing? Is it the same guy singing? Who's been singing?
Well, I've been working with an incredible vocalist from the Bay Area named Brad Brooks, who just sings his ass off, and he's a great writer. So we're cancer brothers. We both had throat cancer, and that kind of bonded us. He had it before me. And when he heard that I had it, we met on a gig one night, and he asked me, "What are you up to?" And I said, "I'm not up to anything, man. I just got diagnosed with throat cancer." And he said, "Don't worry, you're going to get through it." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "I just had it too." He's a couple years ahead of me, but he was my snowplow. He took the bumps out of the road for me, and we became very close friends. And then we said, "Well, let's try and write something together." and the writing was so much fun. I enjoyed it, and our aesthetic lined up so well that I said, well, I got to write a new record to tour on. Why don't we write it together? And it's just been going fantastic. I mean,
That's fantastic, and it
we've been
pays.
off the air.
There's your karma too for what you did with the jail guitars. Like everything you do is very cyclical. It's like an ecosystem of kindness you've created. Is you're like in your second or third life. You're like a cat of rock and roll, where you build good things and the good things are coming. You know what I'm saying? Where it's you're living the principle of what you're doing.
Well, you transmit who you are all the time, whether you
Not
think
everybody
you
sees
are
it.
or
And
not.
everybody sees that though, and you know that, Wayne.
Yeah.
70 years in this earth. Out of every 10 people, how many people do that? Notice that too?
And you attracts like. If
Hmm?
like all those people that go to Sky Bar are assholes, you know, and
Yeah, I've only heard I
they all sit around and lie to each other about how famous they are. I'm not interested in that. Um, and Brad, he's got a couple kids. I've got a kid. He had cancer. I had cancer. We're both veteran rockers. So we it's a good partnership.
That's awesome. And that's the thing, like where it's like, and you can be like certain levels of people, like your level of where you've achieved stuff musically, and other artists can be just as huge, like big, like financial, like like super ridiculously stadiums. But at the same time, you're on stage with Pearl Jam for the same exact reason, because there's that same thread, and there's that same. From what I know of a lot of those guys in that band, are that same soul of the earth.
Hmm.
There's a certain success you can have that doesn't make you a different successful like an artist. There's a certain common musician that you are. You're a musician, and some people get more financial, more records or media behind them because it's whatever, it's easier, more palatable, or relatable at the time. But you're that same musician. Actually, you're more of a leader, and a lot of these guys look up to you because you've really broken some ground when it wasn't a thing. And that's great that you've been able to change your life and not only just experience it, you reap it because you're still doing more now. I mean, the only thing is now, is this going to be a live album? Because your first live album worked out really good for you, which is also kudos to you. The first live album, your first debut's live. You're insane.
I recorded almost every show we played on the MC50 tours. So, maybe we'll do something with one of those. They're pretty good.
You
We
should.
played,
It's
the band played pretty well.
I've seen some clips and some radio shows you guys have done when you had the other, hit your full, like it was like a superstar band, and then I forget the singer's name. He's really good too. He's so funny too. Yeah, he's so funny. His perspective is just so refreshing. Um, it's appreciated. So yeah, that would be nice if that batch of music is out too, especially if you're doing something with some newer stuff, to kind of like let that be shown. You know what I mean? Somewhere historically documented
Yeah.
would be a great gift for the fans. I mean, I know you, the man. I want to thank you, and hopefully, when your album's out, you can come back and we can talk a little more and promote it. Man.
I appreciate the opportunity to meet and blab and tell all our friends and fans out there to you know soldier on, do the right thing, good
Yep,
things will happen. Do the
they
wrong
will.
thing, bad things will happen.